The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
Alright everybody, I am Kevin from The Real Movie Guys, and you are watching The Real Review, a series where we review and discuss all your favorite movies. And don't forget, if you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel today. On today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Dune. A mythic and emotionally charged hero's journey, Dune tells the story of Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, who must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resources in existence, a commodity capable of unlocking humanity's greatest potential, only those who can conquer their fear will survive. From the moment Dune started, I knew this film was special. Reminiscent of when I saw Star Wars or Lord of the Rings for the first time, Dune was able to provide what all those modern day epics have in common: pure cinematic escapism. While I don't know if I can recommend the film to everyone, those who are willing to make the journey through this sci-fi epic desert, Dune offers captivating characters, beautiful cinematography, an engrossing score and masterclass story that, quite honestly for me, made this film not just an enjoyable theatrical outing, but in its own way a uniquely engrossing experience. So, to be transparent, I'm not at all familiar with Dune's source material. Frank Herberts' novels are only recognizable to me in name, and David Lynch's 1984 Dune film I've seen only on snippets on television, not to mention the numerous other films and television adaptations I'm just learning about now. My understanding is that this film's source material is the product of what could be considered the first half of the first novel. The reason I let you know all this is because I don't want there to be any preconceived notion that I think this is an incredibly faithful adaptation. I don't have the background to make that call, and I can relate to people having that affect their experience with the film. I'm only judging this film based on the merits and materials it delivers. With that out of the way, while the film's origins and adaptations are foreign to me, the director Denis Villeneuve is not. His previous works have always produced such incredible character studies and world building, such as 2013's Prisoners or 2017's Blade Runner 2049, arguably one of the best films of that year as well, clearly shows while Villeneuve was the best person for this film. Like Blade Runner 2049, Dune is a complex world with complex characters, and Villeneuve understands this. He chooses to embrace the rich history rather than shy away from it, treating the audience respectfully by never talking down to them, by making new information easily digestible. There's never a "as you already know" scene where the movie decides to exposition vomit everything it has to say so you can understand the upcoming events. Contrarily, the film doles out information as it's needed so as not to overwhelm the viewer. Using a show and don't tell method, trusting the viewer will be able to put the pieces together. When explanation is absolutely needed in dialogue, Villeneuve delivers it in an organic fashion. One prime example of this is when Paul is studying about the planet Arrakis that we see in tactically employed flashbacks. It makes sense from a character perspective that we would be trying to learn about the planet, and also as an informational tool for the audience. You know you have a confident filmmaker when they can entrust their vision to a marriage of dialogue and visuals. Blending such a lore-rich story is no easy task, especially when taking into account the ambiguous concepts being thrown around here. I think the screenwriters were able to find a nice balance with Dune. The film implements a basic narrative skeleton of a Game of Thrones house structure meets a chosen one destiny story, drops in a science fiction setting, and then constantly layers it with thought-provoking themes such as the nature of leadership and the burden of memory, past and potential future. Since the story is in essence easy to follow from a basic narrative standpoint, layering these more complex themes always feels welcoming, making the events surrounding the Atreides dynasty that more interesting. I can't remember the last time I had so much fun watching a movie discussing what certain things may have meant or where the story was going from here. Such high concept themes do come with a caveat, however. This will alienate many viewers that are simply not into this kind of story, which is certainly reasonable. If you find yourself not into this heavy sci-fi influenced material like other similar films, this film won't change your mind. The ensemble cast of this film also really raises this material to new heights, bringing in some standout performances. Much of the burden of the film falls on how we connect with the lead character, and Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides delivers an impeccable performance. The nuanced acting he delivers here really fleshes out what could have easily winded up as a cliche destined hero character. Through his journey journey, we see different personality traits shape him into a complex character that is heroic and righteous, but also cast in a shade of arrogance and narcissism. His chameleon-like acting allows him to make such a strong connection with just about everyone he interacts with, which I can't stress enough is so important to convey this story. This is a tough task for even a seasoned actor to accomplish, making the young Chalamet's career something to watch in the coming years. I wish I could dive into all the incredible performances from Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Josh Brolin, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, Stellan Skarsgård, and so many others, but we'd be here all day. I just have to say, when award season comes around, I will be extremely disappointed if we don't see some kind of nominations for Chalamet or the cast as an ensemble in general. Undeniably, this film's greatest achievement would have to be its visuals. Dune is at this point in time the most beautiful feast for the eyes I have ever seen put to film. Whether it's the endless sand ocean of planet Arrakis, the rolling green hills of planet Caladan, or the darkly ritualistic nightmare of a planet home to House Harkin, every single setting will have you convinced it exists. One of the keys to successes would have to be this film's dedication to using practical effects when possible to help enhance the CGI scenes. Of course, the spaceships and complex machinery don't exist, but the CGI is well hidden among the excellent set design and costumes, blending the two together into something awe-inspiring. The cinematography is also never afraid to help convey to the viewer a grand sense of scale to everything, helping this film to feel like a sci-fi epic. One of the best examples of this would be a scene when we first see the appearance of the sandworms, so notably associated with Dune. We just see a small glimpse of them traveling across the desert and their interaction with the giant sandcrawler as the dragonfly-style vehicle hovers above. The interaction between these three entities, contrasting so dramatically in size, capture the danger and scale of the situation on planet Arrakis. This film's visuals are second to none, and there is no doubt in my mind it represents a milestone in terms of CGI inclusion and execution. Maybe just as impressive as the visuals, in my opinion, would be the entrancing score crafted by legendary composer Hans Zimmer. The mix between synthesized horns, classic string cues, and mystic native chants help to immerse the viewer in this desert world. The score is such a powerful tool in achieving the difference between a setting becoming not just a place for the action of the film, but a character in its very own way. I also love the way Zimmer uses his composition to act as the driving force for a scene where dialogue would normally be used, most evidently effective in the many vision sequences that Paul experiences, where pain, confusion, and surreal nature of what he is seeing needs to come across. So before I wrap up here, I want to circle back to where I think this film will fall into a gray area for some. This slow burn style of storytelling will not appeal to every moviegoer. You really have to enter this film with the conscious effort that this movie wants you to think and process what's going on above the standard popcorn affair. People can and will confuse painstaking world building with what can't be perceived as slow pacing, but interpreting this as a negative would fall upon a viewer's individual taste. More so than the pacing, one of the big talking points for this film will be some of the more unoriginal aspects concerning the plot. Like I mentioned earlier, the bare bones plot is something that we see quite often in entertainment, especially in the similarities with the sci-fi phenomenon known as Star Wars. I'm not going to lie, it's uncanny, but the viewer should keep in mind that technically Dune was written in 1965 and George Lucas's Star Wars came out in 1977, where he has been cited several times, not hiding the fact his opus was largely inspired by the work of Frank Herbert. I'm not diminishing the success of one or the other, just a reminder that a connection does exist. What matters is how the film tells its story, and I think there are certainly enough differences for the two sci-fi titans to stand tall on their own merits. Lastly, the ending of this movie may leave a bit to be desired for some. As the title card states when this movie opens, this is a part one in what is envisioned as a two-part series. The point where the film decides to end, in some sense, feels like a giant cliffhanger, making the events of the film feel like an introduction to the events that lie ahead, giving the audience more questions and way less answers. I think to some extent you can view this film as its own story. There is enough material to formulate a complete plot, but if I'm going to be honest, the story is truly meant to continue on and act as a first half of a grander story. Luckily, before this review was published, the sequel was greenlit for release in 2023, so we will get the continuation and what is assumed to be the conclusion of this narrative. Dune is an experience in every sense of the word, successfully reaching the epic scope it so hopes to capture. A visually stunning and entrancing atmosphere with a perfect ensemble cast not only allows Dune to tug at the dresses of other cinematic epics, but finds its seat at the table next to the other greats. Dune cements itself as one of the most successful escapist experiences I've seen in years from the film industry, setting a standard that makes this film not only the best film I've seen in 2021, but one of the best films I've seen in years. This all leads me to my final score. I'm going to give Dune an A+.
Your grandfather said, a great man doesn't seek to lead. He's called to it. And he answers. And if your answer is no, you'll still be the only thing I ever needed you to be. My son.
I'm curious to see if part 2 affects my experience of this film once the story is complete. Even if the sequel fails to deliver though, I feel my thoughts and experience here will remain the same. However, given the creative minds involved, I have no doubt that our return to the desert sands of Arrakis will be in the best of care and excite me as I look to the future for this science fiction franchise. If you guys like what you've seen here today, consider giving this video a like and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to stay up to date with everything Real Movie Guys related, make sure to hit that subscribe button and check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And don't forget, all you audio listeners at home, we are available on many podcasting platforms. Just search The Real Movie Guys, you should pop right up. Thank you again all so much for joining us on this episode of The Real Review. We are The Real Movie Guys. Real guys, real movies, real thoughts. Catch you next time.